Hello, everyone. This is episode 8, and today we are discussing the mindset of C-suite executives and how they grow and lead their companies with Wayne Scherger of Peer Group Forums. Let's dive in.
You're listening to the Merged Marketing Podcast with David Louch and Jason Hunt. This is a show all about unlocking the marketing tactics and secrets behind everyday brands. Each week, we'll bring you expert commentary so that you can make better choices when it comes to growing your business. Thank you for spending time with us. Now let the show begin.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to yet another episode of the Merged Marketing Podcast. This week, we have an exciting guest and topic to explore. Wayne Scherger is a self-proclaimed growth guru to small and medium-sized companies. For over 30 years, he has been coaching entrepreneurs and guiding them through the process of hyper growth. His passion has always been to help people break through and take their business to the next level, no matter how successful they already are. Wayne, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
How are you today? Are you down south?
I am. I live in Atlanta. It's almost spring, not quite. Another 10 days, and the trees will be in bloom.
Oh, that's good.
Lucky you. You get to escape to the great warm south.
Well, I'm coming to the frozen tundra of Toronto next Friday. So for Valentine's Day. So,
Wait, you're a native of Toronto, right?
No, I'm from Calgary. I'm a dual citizen, Canadian U.S. I've lived in the U.S. since 1988, but I'm from Calgary. Went to University of Waterloo.
Nice.
Lived and worked in Toronto for a period of time, so I know the area.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you don't miss the cold.
No.
Today's one of those days where it's not that nice and we wish we were down south. But before we dive into the mindset of C-suite executives and what separates a successful one from a non-successful one, just please provide a brief background of who you are, but also a high-level view of what it is you do specifically at Peer Group Forums, I think which will provide the context for our listeners as to how you've had the privilege to interact with so many business leaders in your time.
Yeah, well, currently I am the founder of Peer Group Forums, which is a peer advisory group board. And we have different chairs. So I recruit and train and support different chairs. But the business is meetings of CEO, COO, or C-suite type people. They get together. We have different formats, a virtual group, and then classroom style. And kind of in the future, we'll be working on more of a summit type get together quarterly. Members get together and generally discuss issues that they may have. I don't provide any coaching really to them. They coach themselves, but that's where really the crux of the business is really that the members work amongst themselves, processing different problems or issues that they have. We call that collaborative inquiry. And that's kind of what the business is. Prior to that, the last 9 years, I was doing really just full-time executive coaching, CEO, COO type. And the issues with them would be more, accountability, leadership, culture. Occasionally, I'd help them with their operational things, technology. May be an issue. And then prior to that, for 30 years, I was heavy into the franchising business, been a franchisor twice. So I know what it's like to train, recruit, and support people, or recruit, train, and support is better. The way that works. And launched hundreds and hundreds of franchisees over the years. So each one's an individual business, independent contractor. So you got to get them kind of lined up and following the program. And if you're successful doing that, then you've got a pretty successful or profitable franchise system. So I took all what I've learned for personal development over the years and implemented that in my franchising background. And then my executive coaching was pretty much the same. I could tap into my pretty vast knowledge base of running a small business with structure and systems and coach CEOs that may, or COOs that may not have that they're looking for somebody to bump up against, somebody that can give them some direction, who's maybe been there and done it, and we could cut a couple of corners here, maybe use the money that I've spent over the years to teach myself things, and cut a corner and save them some time and effort and frustration. So that was my executive coaching.
Cool. Well, thank you for the background on just kind of how you got started and where you're at now. So I guess the first question I kind of want to explore, which you alluded to a little bit in your intro there, but what led to the idea of forming a company and group around like bringing these high level executives, CEOs and CEOs together to help each other in the group sort of solve problems to the challenges that they're having. Like what was it that kind of dawned on you one day, like, oh, I should form a group, or there's an opportunity here?
Well, many years ago, probably 15 years ago, we started, even within one of our franchise companies, peer groups amongst franchisees. Now, they were all within the same category, business category, but they were different parts of the country. We had learned over a period of time that, who to put together, but you could put people together that have the same volume of business, maybe the same geography, maybe when they started. So it took a little bit of time to figure out what was the secret sauce to that. And then I've been in some of these kind of mastermind groups and went, well, it's best practices. One company may have, they could be, somebody's an architect or an engineer. They're going to look at a problem differently than somebody who's in website development or SEO.
Right.
And so it's great to put people in the same room, completely different, non-competitive categories of business. And generally people have the same issues. It's labor, it's employment, it's accountability, it's onboarding, it's training, it's fear of firing. Tell me when you want me to stop, because they all have similar problems. And so putting people into a room with 10 to 14, 12 to 14 people that share common issues. Some maybe dealt with it a year ago or 2 years ago. Somebody's dealing with it today, and can't wait to get to the next meeting and say, I'm ready to go on the hot seat. Here's my problems. This is what it's cost me so far. This is what I've done to date. Help. So it's really just share of best practices and experiences that people come from completely different backgrounds and non-competing categories of business that want to help each other.
Really want to, during this podcast, Wayne, and I think you're a great source for this, is really getting into the mindset and the psychology of a CEO, right?
Yeah.
There are, because obviously, me and David were talking about this earlier today, because there are different types of kind of CEOs. You have your small business CEOs, that are much different than the corporate kind of CEO that's built around, and their mindset's built around structure for many years to put them in that CEO position that they sit in, where a lot of CEOs at smaller companies don't have that wealth of experience in terms of managing a structured sort of system. And I really think that, there's something to be said about the foundation of the mindset of a CEO and what makes them a little different from the rest.
Yeah. Well, even with our peer group forums, we're trying to create it'll probably be more this year, groups that you can find your own tribe. And maybe it's 2 million and above in annual revenues. Maybe it's 5 million. But somebody who's sort of 10 to 15 million in annual sales is different. He's got a completely different accountability and structure than somebody that's 2 million. The $2 million guy probably doesn't have a COO or a CFO. He's kind of a jack of all trades, wears one hat or multiple hats, where somebody who's maybe 10 to 15 million in annual revenue is completely different. They're both CEOs, but have a completely different span of control and accountability and things like that. So, even when just with executive coaching, I had to tailor my coaching to people that were, okay, if you're a 2 million or 1.5 million in annual revenues, you have way less people that are reporting directly to you than somebody who's 15 million. But you need to learn to delegate, The smaller business, the CEO, he's got his fingers into everything, touching everything, where the $15 million guy's more of a delegation guy, could be a bigger picture guy, working always 6 months in advance. Today is February 7th. So March, April, May, June, July, August. He should be looking at August the 7th, 2020 for his business, not on today's activities. Where the smaller guy, he's probably a little too involved in the day-to-day things without seeing the big picture, but he doesn't have the people that can help build the vision. He is kind of the vision.
Flying by the seat of his pants, so to speak.
A little bit. Yeah. They're fighting fires, bobbing and weaving on the way to work every day because the fireball's coming at them. And, the other guy, the bigger picture guy, he's got other people that can deal with that. Tell me when I got to get involved. And if I don't, you'll take care of it, kind of thing.
It's a good segue, Wayne, to my next question, which really is geared around, and because I ask you, because I think you got a lot of experience, obviously, dealing with different breeds of CEOs. But what, in your opinion, are good traits or characteristics of a good CEO versus a not so good CEO?
Leadership and delegation. Well, and how to build a good culture. So I would say those are the three things. You got to be able to lead. People need to be able to see the vision and then help build it, feel that they're part of it. So that's culture, but it's also the leadership. So those are the real key ones: leadership, culture, and what did I say the other one was?
Leadership, culture, and I don't think you had a
delegation probably.
Delegation.
So, yeah, you got to be able to delegate. You can't do everything. You got to be able to, it's the 82% rule kind of thing. If somebody can do it 80 or 82% as well as you, let them do it. But, I would say there's been in the last 2 or 3 years, such a focus on onboarding and how well you train. But it all goes back to selection, interview and selection. Who are you bringing on? Not necessarily for skill, because everybody's got good skills, but are they a good culture fit for you? And then just train them. Keep them, maybe don't throw them out there if they're in a revenue generating position. Don't put them out there right away. Let them learn the ropes, learning from somebody who's really good. Maybe you bite the salaries for a month and train and support, and then, ease them into the business instead of just throwing them out there and here's your calls, make it happen. That seems to be an older style, and everybody's done that. But onboarding and training and supporting is so much more important, I think, nowadays than it ever used to be.
Would you say, talking on that point, kind of navigating the ship and that onboarding process for that CEO, do you think a good CEO has it in them to walk into any sort of experience or situation and kind of take the bull by the horns and manage it? Or is that unrealistic to think, and that they really do, that CEO, to be in a position to succeed, need that support staff around them to help them be that leader?
Well, my favorite word in the English language, and you just used it, is situational. So to answer your question, that's a situational problem. Some CEOs are great at delegation. They know what their skills are, and they've done a really good job of delegating and holding people accountable and giving those people good professional development so that they're able to learn and grow and develop themselves. So a CEO has to be able to, they don't need to be an expert in each part of the business. Could be, maybe they're not great at operations, but they got a great VP op. Maybe they're more financial, CFO type that's been promoted to CEO or something. So their strengths lie there, but that doesn't mean that they don't have knowledge or skills in the operations or recruiting or training or marketing. But they need to be pretty skilled and knowledgeable in those areas, but they rely on the expertise and the knowledge of that person. That could be the chief marketing officer or the chief financial officer or the chief operating officer or something like that. So, but they need to know a lot about a lot of stuff. That's why they're sitting in the big chair in the corner of the office.
Absolutely. And what was that term you used? BPOT? BPOT?
Uh, Chief Marketing Officer, or
I thought there was a term. Maybe I just missed it. Okay.
oh,
Um,
did we create a new title?
maybe, possibly.
It's the last thing
Now
you
we
need
need
is
a job description.
Yeah. So, going on for a bit here, Wayne, this is something you did not touch on when you talked about some of those key similarities with people that may be in one of these CEO groups or
Yeah.
CEO groups, and that is the work-life balance.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of CEOs. I mean, I think the preconceived notion of a CEO is that they work a lot of long hours and they work hard and they lead a company, right? But you know that work-life balance, how is that best managed, and is that something that people can kind of rely on peer group for support?
Yeah, that's kind of the hidden, I wouldn't call it the hidden agenda part of our groups, but that is crucial. Most CEOs, it's a pretty lonely business at the top. I mean, you only have a few people. If you're not within a group, an advisory group, who do you run your ideas by? Could be your spouse, could be some people that are working for you, could be some old friends, could be some college, university chums or something like that. But they're not, if they've never been a CEO, they're listening to you, but they can't really offer a lot of suggestions or advice. So it's great to join a group. Again, I mentioned, find your tribe, and these are people that are dealing with similar things. So you can bump up against them. You can run some ideas by them. You could come up with, okay, this is, I'm listening. I'm maybe not putting on myself on the hot seat here quite yet as a member in the group, but over a period of time, we make them at some point in time jump in the hot seat. But you're listening and learning from others doing kind of the same job. Doesn't matter, Jason, you make widgets. David, you're a technology guy, and I do whatever I do, but we have a lot of stuff in common, business wise. And I'd be crazy not to listen to, or you'd be crazy not to listen to me if it was something that I've got a history in, or I've just recently dealt with. So the work-life balance it's crucial. It's, being a CEO, COO type, that's a lot of hours, but again, it's a lonely job at the top. Not a lot of people to run your ideas by or bounce ideas off of, sounding board kind of thing. So it's a perfect way to, nobody runs a perfectly superior business. Everybody's got some issues, and you come into a group and saying, I maybe not have the problem today. I see it in 6 months. If you're a good CEO, you're 6 months out in front of your business, not February 7th. And I can see something, could be marketing. It could be, what? I've had two people that worked for me for the last 20 years. Mm-hmm. I think I might need to get rid of them. Mm-hmm. They've gone stale. I've gone stale coaching them. Mm-hmm. And I maybe need some new blood. They're still performing, but I feel that we need to kind of go in a different direction. Maybe we need to add a new revenue stream to our business if I'm looking out in front. And maybe I'm not sure that they're up for another big challenge. 20 years or 13 years of doing this and getting comfortable with it. Sometimes you got to be outside your comfort zone a lot and find a new revenue stream. So can you come with that problem to the group? Yeah, that's what you should bring to the group and say, I need some, who has recently done this?
Yeah, and I think that's a theme people probably hear a lot when it comes to CEOs of massive companies, that it's lonely at the top, and really it's just you and yourself kind of making decisions, and it's the exact same for small business owners as well. It can be a very lonely lifestyle. I guess just closing the gap on everything we've talked about so far. Was it someone that approached you, maybe a fellow CEO, or was it maybe another group that you went to that was similar to this that really spurred the idea, or did someone really just encourage you to start this because they saw
a little bit of both? Yeah. So I've been involved in some of the peer groups as a member and as a chair, and one was a fairly large company, and I just went. My background, I'm the serial entrepreneur, so this wasn't a big leap for me. I went to it and went, that looks a little stale and antiquated. I want to be able to add technology, make it fresh. And so to come up with the idea, because I was already been in this as a chair, I went, I'll just do my own and make it smaller, kind of follow the same format. There's nothing really proprietary in these. You recruit good members and they help recruit good members as well. And then have a pretty structured meeting. I use quite a bit of technology in that. If you want to hear a little bit more, I'll be happy to tell you about that in the meeting. So as you know, CEOs as I get older, they get younger, it seems, and they're really in tune with technology. So we throw quite a bit of technology in our meetings as well. But it wasn't a big leap to go, I know this is a great business. I see that I could multi-location it, multi-unit it, and I'd like to get to 30 chairs over the next 3 or 4 years. Different parts of Canada, the United States, maybe Mexico, New Zealand. I see I could develop this in different parts of the world as an area development kind of deal. And those chairs, maybe on a area development deal, recruit their own chairs. So I'm using my franchising background. This is not a franchise system, but it would kind of look like that. But I just looked at what was my next concept. Don't think I'll ever retire. So this was something that I went, okay, it's a good model. Give back to the community, get involved with people within the community, and provide some, direction and support to them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And just the only reason I was really curious about that part in particular is just because I'm a part of something very similar here. It's called BNI, Business Networking International. So it's similar, but it's different in that it's more about the small to medium-sized business owners getting together on a weekly basis and building relationships and ultimately trying to find referral partners. So it's more sales driven, where I'm sure this is as well, but it's more about like-minded people coming together and helping each other solve problems.
I'm a BNI member as well. That is more networking within your community and helping each other generate leads and things like that. This has a little bit of a crossover to it. We're really not soliciting or trying to help each other with some business, where I can provide, some marketing for you. You do this for me. It's a little more different than that. This is, come with issues. I was involved with one of these businesses where everybody came together just to really tell how great they were.
Yeah.
I went, I don't think there's much. I don't think that's got a lot of longevity to it. You want to come where I come because I got problems. I don't want to come and listen to Jason talk about how great he is and how great you are. And I may feel like, man, I'm right in the toilet here at the moment. Things are terrible. I don't want to go back to that.
Yeah.
Do I want to go to something where somebody is saying, I'm struggling with, I got a VP op that I think I got to fire. Yeah. I'm struggling with marketing. Our cost per leads going up. Our redemptions going down. We're 10% off last year. Our metrics are way out of control from where they should be. I need some help. When people go, okay, I got lots of questions for you. So I find that that's the best place. That's how these businesses or these peer groups. And we're not the only people that do this. There's other people out there, groups out there that get together as well. Maybe a slightly different format, but I think that they're all kind of operating in the same way. People are leaving generally energized, can't wait to get to the next meeting. They may have some accountability, if they put themselves on the hot seat and they picked an accountability partner. So in between meetings that I'll say, Jason, hold me accountable to this. So phone me next week and I'll tell you, what I'm implementing. And by the next time we get together as a group, you've held me accountable to do what I said I was going to do.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Well, thank you, Wayne. We're going to take a very quick break to hear from our sponsors, and then we will come right back and hear from Wayne.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
This week's episode is brought to you by FreshCrowd. FreshCrowd is a full-service social media agency in Canada that specializes in everything social, from management to community building and advertising. FreshCrowd can help your business attract a fresh crowd of people. Visit freshcrowd.com to find out more.
Okay, and welcome back to the podcast. So before the break, we heard from Wayne just describe his background, where he came from, what he's doing now, which is starting a group called Peer Group Forums, which consists of C-suite executives that come together to speak with each other about what their problems are and help each other find solutions. We also dived into a little bit about the mindset of CEOs and what separates them from people that are, maybe smaller business owners or not successful CEOs or business owners. And now I really want to dive into, Wayne, what sort of, separate from the group even, just because you know a lot of CEOs and COOs, but what sort of problems and challenges are CEOs facing today? And are there any general themes that you've noticed over, let's say, the past year? And a follow-up to that is, what sort of problems and challenges do you think they're going to face in the near future?
Ooh, how much time do we have, David?
Maybe just pick a couple. Maybe just a couple of the big ones that,
I would
last
say,
year you've really seen.
yeah, I would say that they're all facing the same thing. Technology is always a challenging one. Like, what do we need to? What platform are we currently on, and what do we need to get to? And I think there's a pretty famous line: if the level of technology inside your business is growing slower than what's outside your business, you're behind the eight ball. So staying on top of technology and what works with your business, that's a and then the recruiting. Where am I finding the right people? Not necessarily skill, because culture trumps skill every time, but I got to find the right people with the culture that match our current culture. And where do we find these people? I don't know if either of you have ever been to either Microsoft or Google's main campuses. I've been, and one's a morgue and one is a party. And now the morgue is fine because there's a bunch of morticians that seem to be working there, so that seems to work for Microsoft. And Google is an all-out free for all, seems. So they do a great job of finding the culture and then finding the skilled people to do that. Now, I gave you two examples of, two of the world's largest companies, but you could be just some small little brand in London, Ontario, and where do I find the people that I need? Can they work remotely? Because technology's allowed that a lot more than it ever used to, with video calls and recorded calls, kind of what we're doing, screencast stuff, just so much more, CRM stuff that never existed. When I first started in business, none of these things were available. So staying on top of technology, learning how to recruit the right people, and then onboarding and training. Those would be the keys. Here's what I would also say: what CEOs need to do, they need to train up their people, which is part of the ongoing training and support. A lot of personal development. Spend time training your people. Send them off to Sandler training. Send them off to, or have them work with an executive coach like I used to, where they learn how to delegate. They learn about accountability. They learn how to manage up and manage down, if you're a COO or something like that. So dedicate a lot of resources to training your people, not necessarily internal training. Send them off somewhere for some training that they could get. It could be, Jason does all kinds of seminars and travels the world with speaking. So, there's a guy that, if I was a brand somewhere, I'd say, Jason, can we do work with you? Can you contract with us for a period of time to give us, monthly coaching in an area like, SEO or something like that?
I think one of the themes you touched on earlier on, which was important, is the accountability. You know what I mean? And it's the question, and that's why I think, the group's super interesting, because, when you're at the top and it's lonely at the top, who holds that person accountable? Right? It could be shareholders, this and that, but especially for the smaller businesses where maybe shareholders are not
Yep.
not involved, who holds them accountable?
Yeah, well, they probably don't have a board either, so shareholders or slash a board. So yeah, you've got to be pretty self-driven, and it's easy to procrastinate. Uh, and if there's nobody that's pushing you, so that could be working with an executive coach, or because a coach, that would probably be a little better initially, and then once you get yourself on board with strategic initiatives, quarterly numbers, your metrics, and then join a group, like a peer group forum, that you want to be able to share your metrics with. You've got to be able to come into these groups too and divulge. There's confidentiality for sure. What happens in the groups or in the meeting stays in the meeting. You got to be able to trust that the other people in there uh, are all the information is confidential, and you got to be able to trust these people. So that would be a great place to come in and say, okay, I worked with an executive coach for a while. We got some systems in place, which could be reporting numbers. What are your metrics? Getting on top of you, maybe getting a CRM developed, because we didn't know anything about anything. We didn't know what our average job size was. We didn't know profitability. We didn't know anything. We were just out there spinning numbers, and guess what? The bills seemed to get paid every month, and maybe I made enough. I got a little bonus at the end of the year. Not a great way to run the business. So then join a peer group, again, of people of like-sized business that can help hold you accountable to your your yearly strategic initiatives.
When we're speaking about accountability, would you say that a CEO is accountable for hiring the culture or creating the culture? And to what level is that important on each of those, creating the culture and hiring the culture? Is it one of the same, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think they create it, but they may have, again, it depends on the size of the business. They may be the interview and selection team as well. So they're going to be hiring for it too. But culture is a lot of stuff. It's, what does your office space look like? Is it all just individual offices with the doors closed? Is it an open space business? Are your brand, is your logo all through the business? Are your core values or manifesto or all those things, are those on the walls? Does everybody in your business know what those are? We used to, and I still make every team I coach, every call we start with their core values. If it's a one-on-one, if I was working with Jason, you read to me your core values this month, next or next call, I read them. Every meeting from that point on, anybody within their company, you read the core values, somebody, so that everybody knows what they are. It's easy to have a one pager that has 5 or 6 core values written, but if nobody knows them, what are they? So that's how you start building culture. And it's how do you even paint your offices? What colors? What artwork do you have on the walls? Open space, just lots of ways to create culture, fun things. Maybe it's Friday afternoons is get together where come with the dumbest idea you have, because if you got a dumb idea, you're in the right place.
I think you're right. There's something to be said as well, especially in a lot of new companies where the employees are entering the workforce, millennials, young. It's a matter of keeping a flat hierarchy and having decisions like this, like what color were you painting the walls, a group decision, and getting everyone's involvement in it. I definitely think, and you would see this more often than I would, Wayne, but I know in our workspace, it's very much like that. It's very flat. We want to eliminate that kind of hierarchy. Right.
Yep.
And I'm sure you're seeing that a lot more with a lot more younger entrepreneurs, younger CEOs and
Yep.
businesses.
Now, yeah, you don't want to give them the illusion of input either. Maybe you got to give, when they give you their ideas, try to implement one every so often so that they know that they're being heard. But just try to make it fun. Lots of social events. There's another thing. We used to give away an award every quarter, and it was You Make a Difference award. So there was a nomination of somebody, and guess what? The CEO or executive team can never win these. They're the ones nominating somebody who could be a rung or two down. And I nominate Jason for his work over and above what he needed to do. It could be conference time of the year, which is typically January, February, March, uh, conferences, or it could be things throughout the year. And so we get together, we kind of kick around the ideas, and at the next quarterly event, after we read the core values and that sort of stuff, we get right into the You Make a Difference Award. And this month it is awarded to some person, and guess what? You get the parking spot out front, you get a month's worth or 6 months worth of car washes, whatever it may be. Just make it fun, so that when people come to work, they look forward to coming to work. They love putting the brand on their clothes and showing up and doing things without being begged to do some stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you. I think that's really good insight into some of the problems and challenges that CEOs and COOs are facing now. And I know I asked, what you think they're going to be challenged with in the future. And I think your answers are really one and the same. I mean, with the rate that technology is advancing, that's going to continue to be an issue for business owners, implementing these new technologies into their businesses. So yeah, that's really great.
Well, learning how to work with people, that are really just coming through college now, or it could be their first job. Their skills are different. How they do things are different than when I went through college, university. There was we didn't even know what the word multitasking. I don't think I learned that until Microsoft threw that word out there. I never heard of it. So just learning how to manage millennials is a challenge, especially if you're somebody 50, 55, 60, and you're still leading companies. That's a challenge.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so we're gonna move into the last couple questions of the interview today. So we'll go next to for the small to medium sized business owners that are listening to this today, because that's the majority of who is probably going to be listening. So maybe they're not making the sort of revenue per year that they would need to join a group like this, or maybe they're still on the stage where they're wearing multiple hats and they're the CEO, the CFO, the CEO, everything like that. What's one piece of advice that you would give to them in order to take things to the next level?
I would say, I heard this from so many people I coached, and I always thought it was a great idea. Educate yourself. There's so much knowledge out there, either online or books or seminars. And I'm not suggesting you go and spend $5,000 or $10,000 going to watch Anthony Robbins and all that sort of stuff. I think that that's probably a big stretch. If you're going to do that, I'd rather join a small group. So that's what I'd suggest. Learn a lot about leadership, culture. Those are the keys. Delegation. And there's so many different ways to do that. Now, here's a little pop for our business. We have the virtual groups, which meet monthly for an hour and a half to 2 hours for a fraction of the cost of a classroom. So it's kind of the same thing. It's just a streamlined version of a 6 or to an 8 hour meeting into 2 hours. And they're virtual. So it's kind of what we're doing here right now. You dial in or you log into a video call, and it's kind of the same thing. Come with an issue, and we solve your issue. So there are other ways to do this versus drop big dollars with peer group forums with our virtuals. But maybe there are smaller mastermind kind of groups out there that would be less expensive as well. But that's what I say. Find know your strengths, know your weaknesses. Probably better. Find a group or places where you can gain some knowledge, and that's personal development for yourself. Even though you may think this is expensive, I think that money comes back tenfold with what you're going to learn and implement right away. Take something from every meeting and take it right back to your business and implement it.
That's great advice. Well, thank you very, very much for your time today, Wayne. This was a really interesting episode. I know I am always interested in the mindsets, habits, and routines of people that are successful so that I can better myself. And I feel like most of our listeners will also be in the same boat. So for those that want to get in touch with you, because maybe they're interested in something that you said today, or they want to find out more about the groups that you've referenced, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you, Wayne?
I'll give you a website, which is www.peergroupforums.com. Toll free is 888-464-4242. You can leave a message and for myself or any of our other chairs. Email is wayne@peergroupforums.com.
Awesome. Okay. Well, be sure to reach out to Wayne, and we also want to hear from you as well. So please rate, subscribe to the podcast. Check us out on social at Merged Media. Visit our website, merged.ca, or email us to get on the podcast at podcast@merged.ca.
All the show notes. Check the website. You'll get all the show notes, and all the links that Wayne talked about today will be on the page on the website.
Absolutely. So Wayne, one final question before we let you go. We ask everybody the same question at the end of every single show, and that is, if you could choose one person, dead or alive, to represent your brand, who would it be and why?
I, like everybody, have a few mentors that I bump up against as frequently as I can. I'm not sure that I'd say that they would be a great brand rep for me. I'm going to go, okay, this person comes into mind. I'm a hockey fan. I'm a Canadian. I know he still does some endorsement work. I'm going to go Bobby Orr.
Oh, hey, hometown, Perry Sound. That is where I'm from. I'm glad you chose Bobby Orr.
Yep.
Cool.
Awesome.
That's a good one. So thanks a lot, Wayne. That's it for today. We really appreciate you being on the podcast, and until next time, we'll talk to you later.
Listen, anytime, guys. I'm happy to do it.
Thanks, Wayne.
Cheers.